I believed I was strong enough to walk away from temptation. I told myself that I could control the line between desire and loyalty. But the night everything changed, I did not push one man away like I promised myself I would. Instead, I made a choice that shattered 3 lives at once. I thought I was managing my secrets carefully, but in truth, I was pulling both worlds into one dangerous collision. And when they finally met, there was no escape from the consequences that followed. Before we go deeper, I want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to this channel, and to all new and returning viewers who have not yet subscribed. I truly appreciate you being here. I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button because it gives this channel the energy to keep bringing you powerful stories like this. Please share your thoughts in the comments after this story because your voice matters. My name is Roslyn Carter, and for most people who knew me, my life looked perfect from the outside. I lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside Chicago. My home was warm, modern, and filled with the kind of comfort that comes from years of stability. I had been married for 6 years to a man named Daniel, a man who was steady, responsible, and deeply committed to building a life with me. He worked as a financial analyst, and his days were structured, predictable, and secure. In many ways, he was everything a woman should want. And yet, something inside me had started to drift long before I even realized it. It was not sudden. It was slow, almost invisible. The way our conversations became shorter, the way our laughter became rare, the way his touch felt routine instead of meaningful. I did not blame him, not at first. Life had simply settled into a rhythm that no longer stirred anything inside me. I told myself this was normal. I told myself this was what long-term love looked like. But deep down, I knew something was missing. That missing piece found me on a Thursday evening at the gym. I had just finished a long day at work and decided to stop by for a late workout. The place was quieter than usual, filled with soft music and the steady hum of machines. That was where I noticed him. His name was Ryan. He was not like Daniel. Where Daniel was calm and structured, Ryan was effortless and magnetic. He had this quiet confidence that did not demand attention, but somehow always held it. When our eyes met for the first time, there was something unspoken that passed between us. At first, it was nothing more than casual acknowledgement, a small nod, a brief smile, but those moments began to grow. Over the next few weeks, we crossed paths often. Our conversations started simply. We spoke about workouts, routines, and daily life, but there was an energy beneath every word, something unspoken, something dangerous. I remember the first time I noticed it clearly. He had stepped closer than usual while we were talking, just enough for me to feel the warmth of his presence. His voice lowered slightly, and for a moment, everything around us seemed to fade. I should have stepped back. I should have reminded myself of who I was and what I had, but I did not. Instead, I stayed. That was the first mistake. The second mistake came when I started looking forward to seeing him more than I looked forward to going home. Daniel did not notice at first, or maybe he did, and he chose not to say anything. Our routines continued as they always had, but I was no longer fully present in them. My mind began to wander. My attention shifted. I told myself it was harmless, that it was just conversation, that it meant nothing, but the truth was already beginning to form, quietly and dangerously. Ryan made me feel seen in a way I had not felt in years. He noticed the small things, the way I smiled, the way I spoke, the way I hesitated before answering certain questions. He paid attention, and that attention became addictive. One evening, after a longer conversation than usual, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. It was a simple question, but it carried weight. I knew what it meant. I knew what it could lead to. And in that moment, I felt the conflict rise inside me. The voice that reminded me of my marriage, the promises I had made, the life I had built. But there was another voice too. Quieter but stronger than I wanted to admit. It told me I deserved to feel alive again. So I said yes. That single word changed everything. What started as coffee turned into longer conversations. Those conversations turned into shared moments that felt increasingly intimate, and with every step I moved further away from the woman I believed I was. The night everything truly shifted came sooner than I expected. It was supposed to be simple, just another evening, just another conversation. But when Ryan reached for my hand for the first time, I did not pull away. I held on. And in that moment, I crossed a line that I could never fully uncross. I told myself I could still control it, that I could keep my world separate, that I could manage both without consequences. I believed I could push one away if it ever went too far, but I did not understand something crucial at the time. I was not pushing anything away. I was pulling both lives closer together, and eventually, they were bound to collide. By the time I realized how deep I had gone, it was already too late to pretend it was harmless. What began as simple conversations with Ryan slowly transformed into something that carried weight in every glance, every touch, every silence we shared. There was no clear moment where it turned into an affair. It happened in fragments, in small decisions that felt insignificant at the time, but built something irreversible. The first time we crossed the line physically, it did not feel like a mistake. That was what frightened me the most. It happened in his apartment, a place I had told myself I would never go. I remember standing at the door, feeling that quiet hesitation rise inside me again, the same voice that had warned me before, the same instinct that knew this would change everything, but I ignored it, just like I had done every time before. The moment I stepped inside, I felt something shift in me. It was no longer about curiosity or attention. It was desire, raw and undeniable. Ryan did not rush anything. He moved with patience, with confidence, as if he understood exactly what I was feeling before I even spoke. When he touched me, it was different from anything I had experienced in years. It was not routine. It was not predictable. It felt alive, intense, almost overwhelming. And instead of pulling away, I gave in completely. That night, I did not think about Daniel. I did not think about consequences. I only thought about how alive I felt in that moment. That was the truth I tried to bury afterward. When I returned home, everything looked the same walls, the same quiet, the same man who trusted me without question. Daniel greeted me with the same calm presence he always had, unaware that I had already betrayed him in the worst way possible. Guilt came, but it did not come strong enough to stop me. That was the part I struggled to accept about myself. Instead of ending things with Ryan, I found myself going back, again and again. Each time, I told myself it would be the last. Each time I believed I could control the situation, but control was an illusion I had already lost. Ryan became more than just a secret. He became a second life. With him, I felt desired, spontaneous, unpredictable. With Daniel, I felt stable, secure, and increasingly distant. Instead of choosing one, I convinced myself I could keep both. That was the lie that destroyed everything. Weeks turned into months, and the tension inside me began to grow. Balancing both lives became harder. Small cracks started to appear, missed calls, late nights, subtle changes in my behavior that I tried to hide but could not fully control. Daniel began to notice. He did not confront me directly, but I could feel the shift in him, the way he looked at me longer than usual. The way his silence carried questions he was not ready to ask. And still, I continued. I told myself I would end things with Ryan soon. I told myself I just needed the right moment, but deep down, I knew I did not want to let him go. Then came the night everything collapsed. It was a Friday evening. Daniel told me he would be working late, something that had become normal in our routine. Without hesitation, I made plans to see Ryan. There was no longer any pause, no longer any internal debate. That part of me had already been silenced. I went to Ryan's place again. The night felt different from the start. There was an intensity in the air, something heavier than usual. We did not speak much. We did not need to. Everything between us had already been understood without words. What I did not know was that Daniel had not stayed at work. He had left early, and for the first time in weeks, he decided to come home without telling me. When he arrived and realized I was not there, something pushed him to look deeper. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the accumulation of small doubts he had been ignoring. He checked my location. That was how he found out where I was. I still remember the exact moment everything shattered. Ryan and I were in the middle of a moment that felt completely disconnected from reality when there was a knock at the door. It was not gentle. It was firm, deliberate, filled with a kind of force that immediately sent fear through me. Ryan looked at me, confused, but I already knew. Before the door even opened, something inside me collapsed. When Ryan pulled the door open, Daniel was standing there. The silence that followed was suffocating. There are moments in life where time feels like it stops, where every decision you have ever made leads to a single point of no return. That was one of those moments. Daniel did not shout at first. He just looked at me, and that look carried everything: confusion, pain, betrayal, disbelief. I had imagined this scenario in my mind before, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of it. Standing there, caught between two men, I realized something that I had refused to accept until that moment. I had not been managing two separate worlds. I had been dragging them toward each other, and now they had collided in the worst way possible. Ryan stepped back, sensing the gravity of the situation, but it did not matter anymore. There was no space left for excuses, no room left for lies. Daniel finally spoke, but his voice was not loud. It was quiet, controlled, and far more painful than anger. That was when I understood the full weight of what I had done. I thought I could push one away when things went too far, but instead, I had pulled both inside the same moment, and now there was no way out. There is a kind of silence that does not just fill a room, it consumes everything inside it. That was the silence I stood in that night. No one rushed to speak. No one tried to fix what had already been broken. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, as if even the walls understood that something irreversible had just happened. Daniel did not create a scene. He did not react the way I had imagined in my worst fears. There was no shouting, no anger that exploded into chaos. What he gave me was worse. He gave me restraint. He looked at me with a kind of quiet pain that stripped away every excuse I had prepared in my mind. In that moment, I wanted him to yell. I wanted him to release the anger I knew he was holding inside, but instead he simply nodded, as if something inside him had already made a decision. That was when fear truly settled in. Not fear of being caught, but fear of what I had lost. He turned and walked away without another word. No confrontation, no demand for explanation, just distance. And somehow that hurt more than anything else. I stood there, frozen, unable to move, unable to speak. Ryan remained in the background, silent, uncertain, no longer the confident man who had once made everything feel exciting and alive. In that moment, even he understood that this was no longer something thrilling or secret. This was damage. Real, irreversible damage. I left shortly after, but I did not go back to Ryan. I went home. The drive felt longer than it ever had before. Every thought I had been avoiding rushed in all at once. The lies, the moments, the choices. They played over and over in my mind like something I could not escape. When I entered the house, the emptiness hit me immediately. Daniel was gone. Not just for the night. Gone. Some of his things were missing. Not everything, but enough to make his message clear. He had not needed to say anything. His absence said it all. That was the moment reality fully settled in. I had not just made a mistake. I had destroyed my marriage. Days passed, but they felt disconnected, like I was moving through something that did not feel real. I tried calling him. I tried sending messages. None of them were answered. The silence continued. Ryan reached out too, but something inside me had changed. The excitement I once felt was gone. In its place was a heavy realization that what I had chased had cost me something far more valuable. I began to see everything clearly for the first time. Ryan had never promised me anything beyond the moments we shared. He was not the one who had broken vows. He was not the one who had built a life and then stepped outside of it. That was me. I had convinced myself that I was searching for something missing, but in truth, I had been running from something I refused to confront. My own dissatisfaction, my own silence, my own failure to address the distance growing in my marriage. Instead of fixing what was broken, I escaped into something easier, something exciting, something temporary, and now I was left with the consequences. Weeks later, Daniel finally agreed to meet me. We sat across from each other in a quiet cafe, a place that once held small, happy memories. But this time, everything felt different. There was a distance between us that could not be closed, no matter how much I wanted it to be. He looked tired, not physically, but emotionally. And when he finally spoke, his words were calm, steady, and final. He told me that trust, once broken, does not return the same way. He told me that he had loved me deeply, but what I had done had changed something inside him that he could not ignore. He did not insult me. He did not try to hurt me back. He simply chose himself. And that was something I had not expected. I realized then that the real consequence of my actions was not anger or revenge. It was loss. Permanent, quiet loss. We signed the divorce papers a few months later. Just like that, 6 years of shared life became something that existed only in memory. As for Ryan, whatever we had faded naturally. Without the secrecy, without the thrill, it became clear that it was never built to last. It was not love, it was escape, and escapes always end. Now, I live alone in a smaller apartment, far from the life I once had. I have had time to think, to reflect, to understand the choices I made and why I made them. I have learned that temptation does not destroy a person. The decisions made in response to that temptation do. I thought I could control everything. I thought I could hold on to 2 worlds without them ever touching. But I was wrong. In trying to avoid losing one, I lost both. And the hardest part is knowing that it did not have to happen this way. If you have ever found yourself standing at the edge of a decision you know could change everything, pause and think carefully about what you truly stand to lose. Because some choices do not just create moments, they create consequences that last far longer than the feeling that caused them. And here is the question I want to leave you with. If you were in my position, would you have walked away from temptation? Or would you have convinced yourself you could handle both until it was too late?